this has probably been the bloodiest Christmas, not just for Bethlehem, but for Gaza. Of course, according to the Hamas-controlled health ministry, as we've mentioned, more than 20,000 Palestinians have been killed in the Israeli counteroffensive in the last 11 months, and just the occasion of Christmas Eve saw at least 70 Palestinians being killed in a single Israeli strike at the Al-Maghazi refugee camp. And of course, 15 Israeli soldiers were also killed in combat over the weekend. This seems to be getting bloodier by the day. Dr. Chore, really, what does the future hold? Prime Minister Netanyahu seems completely immune to any kind of criticism or the growing calls for a ceasefire. He says there is no question of stopping till we've achieved complete victory over Hamas. But one is beginning to wonder, 20,000 people dead and counting, what would a complete victory over Hamas even look like? Can there be one?
Well, first of all, hello, Nia, and Merry Christmas to all our Christian viewers. I think Netanyahu honestly reflect the consensus in Israel at the moment. Nobody wants to see bloodshed. Nobody wants to see dead Israeli soldiers. As you can see by the death toll on our side, it's costly. And the reason is that nobody wanted, to punish the Palestinians by a death toll. Namely, okay, we will kill 20,000 of you, and then we will feel that we've revenged or something, barbaric of that sense. No, there is a purpose for this war. And the purpose is, of course, to eradicate Hamas once and for all, to put an end for the suffer of both Israelis and Palestinians on both sides of the border. Now, obviously, it has its high prices, but, I told you even before, I would really take with a lot of suspicion their numbers. I'll just give you a simple example. We are already something like 2.5 months after the war began. They are counting within those 20,000 the natural causes of death, which is about 2,000 per month. Namely, 5,000 of them, of those 20,000, are dying for natural causes. Of course, there are others who are dying because of the war, including civilians. But still, the ratio between the 8,000 terrorists killed by the IDF and the civilians, namely something like 7,000, if we take, of course, Hamas words, is still better than any other army. Of course, with all the regret that any human being can express on the death of innocents. But we need to conclude this war with the achievements that were, or the goals that were set from the very beginning, which is eradicating this Nazi organization that turned our life into a hell, a living hell in the past 17 years.
Okay. I know that most of you dispute the numbers, the death toll put out by the Hamas-controlled health ministry. But, I also want to mention to you the fact that apart from all these deaths that we're talking about, the World Health Organization is on record as saying there is acute hunger and rising desperation in the Gaza Strip, and there is a huge risk of a famine in the besieged enclave as people are desperately searching for food, those who still are alive. It is an increasingly desperate situation by the minute. So let me go across to our Indian guest at this point, Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav. The Israeli Prime Minister says, we are paying a heavy price. The war has come at a very heavy price for Israel, but we have no choice but to keep fighting until we achieve complete victory over Hamas. Frankly, 11 months into the war, 12,000 dead and counting. The world is asking today, who is paying a heavy price? Israel or Palestinians? The innocent civilians. Nobody has any sympathy for the Hamas terrorists. But what about the lives of innocents that are being lost every single day as this war carries on relentlessly? Who really is paying the price here, sir?
It is the civilians who are paying the price. And let us look at the big picture. The political aim of Israel, as enunciated by the Prime Minister, is complete annihilation of Hamas. But to my view, this is not a proper military objective because Hamas represents an ideology, and there are ideological differentials since centuries. So it cannot go away the way they are trying to use force against the civilians, and the casualties are mounting. In fact, with every person who's been killed in Israeli bombardment and their operations that are going on, there is going to be a sense of revenge amongst the civil population there. So this kind of an episodes are going to recur time and again, even in the future, unless until both the sides they sit down and they reconcile to the fact that Israelis as well as Palestinians, they have to survive and they have to live together. So that could be the way out. And second objective, what Israel had said started with, it was that release of all the hostages. Now Hamas has not released all the hostages. They still have the major part of the hostages with them, and they're using them as a human shield, and they're using them as a political bargaining chip. So tomorrow, whenever they're going to sit down on a negotiating table, eventually it is going to come about sooner or later. Despite the fact whatever Israel may say, we are going to continue this war, but there is a war fatigue. They obviously cannot continue, especially in the face of the kind of negative publicity they are getting. If you look at the perception management, initially Israel was looked as a victim. Now there is a paradigm shift. Now Israel is being seen as an aggressor. And entire international committee is keen that there should be a ceasefire and they should sit down on a table and negotiate. And the way out probably is state as per the UN Charter given out in 1967.
Well, you certainly make some important points there, including the fact that between the 7th of October and now, Israel has gone from being seen as a victim to being seen as an aggressor and an oppressor of the Palestinian people in Gaza. So just what is the way forward? The Hamas war, which is now in its 11th week as the death toll in Gaza keeps rising. At last count, more than 20,000 people had been killed in Gaza, and according to the Hamas-run health ministry, 60% of them were women and children. This is, of course, a figure that is constantly disputed by Israel. Okay, let me go back to our Israeli guest, Dr. Harel Chore. Dr. Chore, respond to what Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav, our Indian guest, said. He makes a couple of important points. One, he believes, and he's a military man, that the military objective that has been set by Israel seems to be unrealistic. We all know that Hamas isn't just a terror organization, it's also an idea or an ideology. How exactly does Israel hope to completely stamp it out and achieve quote-unquote complete victory? Is that even a realistic target? Number two, he says you've gone in the space of 11 weeks from being seen as a victim to an aggressor or an oppressor. And I know you don't like that word, but there are many who are accusing Israel of committing a genocide today. And three, the Lieutenant General makes a very valid point. The kind of angst and outrage that the growing death toll in Gaza is, triggering not just amongst the Palestinians but in the entire Arab world. How can Israel hope to have lasting peace and durable security, having triggered so much angst and outrage in that region?
Well, let me start with a common mistake. And a common mistake is that people do not separate between organization and ideology. There is a difference between the two. Of course, the Nazi ideology is still with us, unfortunately, but the Nazi monster of the Second World War was fully destroyed. ISIS is still an idea, still an ideology, but ISIS was destroyed significantly a few years ago. So you can destroy an organization and not necessarily the idea, but this is less, less problematic because first and foremost, you want to destroy the organization, and Hamas can be destroyed. We already, if we are going into percentage, we're already talking about something like 90% of their forces in the north that are destroyed, 50 or even more percent of their forces in the south destroyed as well. So eventually they will be destroyed. And regarding the level of hate, Nia, our forces finding there in schools iPads with the picture of Adolf Hitler, okay, and all sorts of Nazi, anti-Semitic from the worst kind against Jews that was there for years. So they will hate us more than what they hate us at the moment. So what I really hope to see is a catharsis, is something that already happened in the Palestinian arena after the Second Intifada, when they realized that generation, unfortunately, we are also talking about a generational kind of thing, that violence will lead them to nowhere. And my hopes is following this war, after Hamas will be eradicated as an organization. Of course, we will still need to maintain it. We will still need to go in and out. But surely that this will not be the same kind of organization that we had on October 6th. As for the hunger that you've mentioned before, it's really important to emphasize again and again and again that they are hungry not because they don't get enough trucks every day. They get hundreds of trucks every day from two different crossings. But Hamas is robbing those trucks. You can hear the Gazans complaining openly against Hamas as robbers, as stealers, as people who make the people suffer for what is happening. So it's not even my assumption. As for the international community attitude as Israel, from a victim to an aggressor, yes, but you have on the second day, I heard this despicable professor from Cornell University saying that he was energized and exhilarated because what happened on October 7th. All of a sudden, you see who are the anti-Semite here openly. And we need to accept the fact that many people around the world will be negative towards Israel, whatever will happen. Others are just naive and they don't understand what we're facing, what we're dealing with. So at the bottom line, I'm saying, don't love us, but respect us. Don't kill 1,400 people of ours, and you will be safe as you were on October 6th. Nobody, did any provocation to summon this vicious attack. And again, I think I told you this story. I'll do it really shortly, just to express how personal this thing is. 100 meters away from me, a couple who lost their daughter in that party. Neighbors, their son is kidnapped. Friends of ours from America, son is kidnapped. You see, for all of us Israelis, it is extremely personal, and this is why when Benjamin Netanyahu, which is totally out of consensus on a normal day, is right about what he's demanding.